about San Juan by Maestro Rafael Tassoni.
Good morning. I am here in my studio location of the Sandow Association, where our main focus of study is movement, body, mind, and energy. My name is Raffaele Tassoni. I've been studying Tai Chi for about 35 years now. For the first 15 years, I studied the modern style, and as I slowly learned, I became interested in the traditional style. I then came across my master Wang, who I felt was a suitable teacher for what I was interested in learning. He taught me the art style of Tai Chi for about 10 years, after which I left him to continue studies on my own, because I feel that every experience is a lesson about life. Therefore, to follow a teacher for an entire lifetime, you are doing more his work than you are your own. I didn't choose to leave. I was forced into it, but I was very happy with the work that we did together, as well as the experience. The system that I studied and now teach is a system that's geared towards good health, not the martial art style of Tai Chi, even if the martial art element complements our practice because we study the basic fundamentals. But I believe this to be the right path to an excellent practice. There are many forms and types of Tai Chi, as well as schools, but to each his own. I chose to practice in this way, simply based on my unique experiences. For instance, the basic fundamentals are important to be able to prepare the body to practice Tai Chi moves, because it's very difficult to learn Tai Chi in just one class. We don't do a lot of classic forms or sparring. We basically do movements, and it's in these movements that I've learned is where we can restore our natural health and feel good. To give you an example of good health, I'm 67 years old, and to be quite frank with you, I feel that I'm in much better health now than I was 10 years ago. I have good energy and good health. I want to share my experience with the hope that there are people out there that want to understand, trust, and see my model of practice in order to help them in their daily lives. I have a friend in Hong Kong that's interested in publishing my system to the world so that anyone and everyone can start practicing. Basically, we study the following: the basic fundamentals, the form, obviously, to show. We do not practice any combat, only a few applications to understand the work. To show, on the other hand, is useful because practicing on your own becomes a little stagnant. We need confrontation in order to understand relationships. We understand that without relationships, there is no life, especially in medicine, in a social aspect, because we cannot have a life without it. A relationship is everything. The first thing that comes to mind is the relationship that I need with the earth. What I've noticed is that we oppose the force of gravity when we could simply use gravity to our favor, because it's always there and we're able to use it in our movements where there's energy and there's no consumption of energy, and we reap the benefits of that. This battery that we were gifted at birth usually runs out by about age 70 and becomes depleted, at which point we are in need of medication in order to continue living. Instead of medications, we try to regenerate this battery. These movements are very slow because the mind needs time in order to register them, learn them, and store them in a database, so that every time we practice, we pull out the file and improve upon it to keep moving forward in this style of a practice. The first pose that I'd like to share is Zenzwan. I'm going to demonstrate with one of my students, Antonio, so that I can speak as you follow us into this very first pose. As you can see, his posture is correct because his weight is transferred to the middle and the forefront of his feet. I'm going to turn him around so that you are able to see and follow me in this pose. I put a finger on him in order to measure his connection. I've learned to measure it this way with all of my students by placing my finger on him. If I'm able to push him away, then he is not connected. If I get pushed away, then he is connected and totally balanced, not in relation to the earth, but rather in relation to the sky. If I cover this connection and I push him, he will lose his connectivity and will fall, because I've blocked his connecting wire to it. Instead, it's the wire connection that pushes me. This is very important because energy can be summoned with a positive and a negative. The ground is the negative wire and the sky is the positive wire. We are always on the negative wire, so when we are not connected, we consume our battery quickly. Zenzwan is a way to practice in order to understand this work. So therefore, there is no need to have your legs too far apart. It's important that your hips, knees, and ankles are all in alignment. We use this movement in everything we do. And in this way, root, trunk, branches, which references as follows: hip, knee, ankle. Therefore, if our legs are too far apart and we are continually doing this movement, it can create damage to our hips. So how exactly do we do this work? He is connected with his head to the sky, and it's like his whole body is falling to the ground, accepting that gravity is pulling him. He doesn't oppose to it with a rigid stance, but rather he lets go. And right away, what happens? His arms relax and his elbows naturally come out into this position. That is where the energy circulates, because energy must circulate within our body. We cannot take energy and leave it there, not even in our battery. It's no different than our blood. It needs to circulate. Otherwise, it will create problems. Energy circulation is far more important than our blood circulation because we need energy in order to be on our feet. We cannot use our muscles to keep us on our feet. It's our skeletal system that allows us to place our feet on the ground. Our muscles relax with our skeleton, and we create this connection with our environment. Just a few minutes standing in this position already is a practice in itself, and such an important stance because it's very healing on a physical and psychological level, not to mention the tranquility that it brings to feel one's body. Once you begin this type of a practice, it becomes a commitment to finally wanting to take care of ourselves and to try and understand our body in a way that we've never known. This is the first position because Zenzwan has 5 positions to the entire pose. Now, anyone can perform these postures. An elderly person, a child, a physically challenged person, someone who is confined to a wheelchair. It can be applied to anyone. This is the first part that we must maintain. So what must we do? As we hold this position, we must always be connected with our head to the sky. We must never do this, because it means we've lost our connection. Because we are continually breathing to provide oxygen to our lungs, it's not necessary to follow our breath. But to give you an idea, when our body lowers itself to the ground and the muscles relax, what happens then? When he stretches out the muscles and then lets go, the muscles naturally rise back up, and he continually releases. But what is the most important part of this exercise? It's our back, because our back has never been considered, but now we are creating an awareness to it. This awareness to our back is very important for any type of activity. For instance, singing. If a singer has no awareness of their back, eventually as the years pass, they will have vocal cord issues. We do not straighten up our spinal cord. Instead, our spinal cord stretches so that the energy can flow calmly and continually. So as he lowers himself to the ground and continues this movement, he also releases the muscles in this way. These are all small movements and continuous. We must be in continual movement. We are not built to stay still, because even when we're still, our insides are moving. For example, when someone breaks his arm, after a month of being in a cast, they have to have physiotherapy in order to rehabilitate the muscle. Therefore, we're not designed for stillness, but society has placed so many demands on our body to be still, which causes blockages. We only move very few parts of our body. My arm is actually still, even though I'm moving it, hence why it's important to let go. If you place your hands on his back and he lets go, you're able to feel that his Shen Dao has released. But each of us has our own time in which our muscles learn to release. Antonio has been practicing now for about 7 years. Therefore, his practice holds quite a bit of quality to it. From here, we move into the second position, as if we're holding a large stomach. But even here, what do we need to do? We need to make our connection with our head, and we do this with our skeletal system. As it releases and our muscles lower. He's already in the position, just a few minor adjustments. A void under his arms to allow the energy to flow. He's already connected to his energy because he feels it in his hands. Anyone can feel this energy in this position. This blocks our energy, and this blocks our energy. Relaxed and continuous letting go will automatically allow the muscles to glide down our skeletal system, and then come back up on their own, down, up, and down. You can start with 1, 2, or 3 minutes, and then slowly you can increase the length of time to as much as an hour, but it's very difficult to maintain this position if not executed in the proper way. After this, we can move into the third phase. With our hips downwards, we come up and we connect. The height of the hands must be this high. The elbows are much lower, and the arms must be open in this position, as the hands are facing forward like this, because between his hands there is energy, and in this way there is no problem for energy to flow. There is no problem for the energy to flow between his hands in this position. If there's connection, then it will push me away. But if I cut the energy between his hands, he surrenders his connection, even though he's not in favor of this. This position allows us to feel many nice sensations in our body. Therefore, he came up because we moved upwards, up to this point, and then I connect my head to the sky, and I relax my entire body in this way. As our knees bend, and the weight goes to the forefront of our feet, everything is in its place. Afterwards, I continue this work for the time that I choose, again connecting to the sky without pushing with the muscles. It's as if our head is floating upwards by using our skeletal system, but without too much force on the ground. I pull up as if someone is pulling us by our head. Our reference is the sky and not the ground. So I hang my head and I let go. The more I'm able to relax and release, the more your muscles will come back up. I relax in continuation. Afterwards, we switch to the high position. We once again use our hips to go down, and then we do one rotation. Rotating our hands upwards and our palms are facing up. Our head is light and connected to the sky. We lower our body. Our knees are slightly bent. We don't bend our knees to lower. No, rather it's because I relax my back, which pushes my hips, and this is the proper execution. But even here, I continue to go downwards as I release my arms, float up naturally. You cannot see it, but even here, there's an active frequency. The same frequency that a valve has. I'm going to turn his hands like this. He gets energy, and he's very connected. Being next to him, one can feel the energy. If you try and push him, you can see that his energy pushes me away. In reality, I'm not trying to push him, but simply trying to understand if he is in equilibrium with the sky and the earth. This is very important. Zanzuan is about discovering our body, slowly detaching our head and working together with our body. This is how we learn to work together with mind and body. This is what creates the understanding that ties all these things together in a very sensitive way in order to help our entire body to function naturally. This completes the fourth position, at which point we lower ourselves and we focus on the exterior, where we imagine a stream of water just below here. It's like watching a stream pass us by, and this is where the stream is. He's not fully supported by his feet, nor his hands. He maintains himself by this line of the stream below his hands. His arm is not rigid, but rather stretched out as if someone is slightly pulling at it. And the hand is very open. It's extended and not rigid, and his entire hand with his fingers are fully open. And even here, he has already done the work, and he is connected and maintained himself on the water with very little force on the ground, very light, without any weight, because it's important that we feel the lightness. It's almost like we're weightless, because it's in this fashion we use the force of gravity to our advantage to feel the lightness rather than squashing the gravity.
Non la stiamo subendo, non è che è come se ci schiacciano per terra, no, siamo in connessione.
If I place a light bulb in its socket, it turns on because there's electrical energy. And this works in the same way. Energy here goes up and down in the same fashion, with tranquility and serenity. So these are the 5 postures of Zhanzhuan. 10 minutes every day of Zhanzhuan is an exceptional, fantastic practice. It's extremely healing, and it eliminates multiple problems. It's obvious that this is the most difficult pose, because after 5 minutes, we discover our energetic blockages. For instance, being in this posture, I feel rigid, as if I need to endure the position. Rather than becoming rigid, I release and relax the rigid points. Only then am I able to keep going for a little longer. When you can progressively do this pose, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 and 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, the difference between 5 minutes will bring a big change. It becomes twice as important, but it's necessary that when you're in this position and you can no longer hold the pose, it's in that very moment that you need to count to 30 and see how much longer you can resist in the pose and then release. This is the first approach to establishing the rules of the posture, to establish the shift in weight to the forefront of our feet. All of mankind walks the earth with their weight on their back of their legs, but instead, this is the natural pose we need to learn. And it's in this transfer of weight that I give the energy an opportunity to flow in a natural way. Thank you for joining me and watching my work. This is the very first part, and stay tuned for what's to follow.